Hi, everyone. Did you know that the story of Noah in the Bible is not just about him building the ark and surviving the flood? He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But what do we know about them? What happened to them after the flood? If you want to find out all about these biblical characters, don't miss today's video. And don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any interesting content. Let's get to the video. The book of Genesis presents us with several well-known stories: creation, the fall, Cain and Abel, and the Tower of Babel. Also included in this book is the story of Noah and the flood. While we know some things about Noah, we know little about his 3 sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Each had contributions and importance to their father and humanity after the flood. Before we explore the meaning of Noah's sons in the Bible, let's examine the importance of the flood and the ark. Like many popular Bible characters, those who had direct contact with God are often the ones who write the stories we read. Often, they even appear in the story. In this case, Moses is the attributed author, and the story of Noah is told by others in subsequent books, Matthew, Luke, and 2 Peter. Being a man who had an intimate relationship with God himself, Moses writes about another man who was exemplary compared to those around him. Noah's father, Lamech, said this about his son: "He will comfort us in the labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." Genesis 5 verse 29. He went on to serve humanity and, primarily, God. Most of us know the story from childhood Sunday school, where we learned about Noah and the animals, or from a Sunday sermon where the preacher explained the story. Who are Noah's 3 sons and what are they known for? Noah's sons are not described as having built the ark with their father, although we can presume that they did. On the other hand, they are described in more detail as leaders of specific tribes after the flood. Genesis 10 explains some of the lineages that resulted from the 3 brothers. Japheth had 7 sons, Ham had 4, and Shem was blessed with 5. From each of these men, their descendants repopulate the earth, resulting in varied languages and cultures throughout the world. This also reminds us that our modern idea of race is not real. An important distinction happened between Noah's sons. Ham was the beginning of what would become the nation of Canaan. On the other hand, the descendants of Shem went on to inherit the promised land. Japheth's people lived peacefully with those of Shem's lineage in neighboring areas. An overview of Noah, his sons, and the flood. The story of Noah includes 4 important elements: living beings, a flood, an ark, and God. During one of the many times that humanity, or parts of it, turned its back on God, there were consequences. In this particular biblical story, the consequence is a divine flood covering the earth. According to the story, the only humans God preserves are Noah, his sons, and their wives. The way they escape the disaster is by following God's instructions. They build an ark, are saved in it, and wait until the flood subsides. Life on earth mostly ended during the flood. However, after the event, life can flourish again, for both people and animals. Noah's story serves as an example of how we can not only serve God, but also know God's character. What is Noah's story in Genesis 6? He is first introduced at the end of Genesis 5 about his father, Lamech. As described in the passage, Noah is one of many sons and daughters, although he is the oldest. His mention in this chapter is very brief, so details about his children quickly follow. We also quickly learn his age in the story, 500 years. Before or after the age of 500, Noah fathered his children. No other details appear in the Bible about Noah's family. Noah's story begins in Genesis 6, where we read details about the corrupt humanity on earth. The sons of God and the Nephilim, who seem to be beings from another world, are mentioned as being present on earth, Genesis 6 verse 4. Together with these details, we read that God says, "My spirit will not remain with mankind forever, because they are corrupt," Genesis 6 verse 3. This separation from God, due to sin, served as a precursor to the approaching flood. Surviving the flood. However, Noah differed from humanity because of his righteous behavior, Genesis 6 verse 9. This explains why God warns Noah about the impending flood and instructs him to build an ark. In the ark, Noah must bring specified numbers of pairs of every animal, male and female. Similarly, he can bring his sons and their wives, all of whom remain unnamed in the story. An unspecified amount of time passed while the ark was being built. We can assume that Noah did not build the entire ark alone and likely worked together with his sons and the rest of his family. The flood came when Noah was 600 years old and lasted 150 days, Genesis 7 verse 24. Noah and his family survived the flood, but throughout the event, the Bible does not reveal significant details about Shem, Ham, or Japheth. Only after the flood do the sons receive more prominence. Although their presence in the Bible is not prominent, like their father, their presence offers commentary on humanity and God. It is worth learning more about each of them. Here are 3 things to know about Noah's sons in the Bible. What did God command Noah's sons to do? After the events of the flood, Noah and his sons reaped God's blessings. We read in Genesis 9 that God gave them authority over all creatures and commanded them to be fruitful and multiply. This command is significant because these were the same words spoken to Adam and Eve. God blessed Adam by having his descendants spread throughout the earth. God blessed Noah and his sons in the same way. Their descendants populated the earth, all serving as bearers of God's image. Why does Noah curse one of his sons? Another occurrence after the flood was the events that resulted in Noah cursing one of his sons, Genesis 9 verses 20 to 27. This began when Noah started a vineyard. During this endeavor, he one day became drunk with wine and was naked in his tent. The first son to discover him was Ham. There are no details about Ham's emotional response to seeing his naked father, but what he did next was to tell his brothers. Upon hearing this, Shem and Japheth covered their father, without exposing his nakedness. By helping to not expose their father, they were blessed. On the other hand, Ham was cursed by his father. Ham suddenly became smaller than his 2 brothers. From which of Noah's sons does the lineage of Jesus come? After being blessed by his father, the lineage of Shem would later reap another blessing, the birth of Jesus. We learn this in Genesis 11 and, while Jesus Christ is not mentioned by name, we see 2 other familiar names, Abram and Sarai. Lessons we can learn from Noah's sons. Despite being background characters for most of the flood and having a very limited appearance in the Bible, there are lessons to be learned from the 3 brothers. Firstly, being in the background doesn't make us insignificant. Shem, Japheth, and Ham were not noticed as great men like their father. Still, God blessed them by preserving life in the ark alongside their father. They shared whatever responsibilities they played, although those details don't appear in the Bible. There's a reason we read about them today, even though the detail is limited. Secondly, we should take care of our family. Ham didn't immediately help his father and instead went to share the news with his father. Before him, there was a family conflict between Cain and Abel. And their conflict can be traced back to Adam and Eve. Whenever we see something wrong happening because of or to a loved one, we can intervene to correct the situation. Lastly, God said to be fruitful and multiply. Today, we understand that multiplying by the earth is not limited to reproduction but includes making new disciples. We can always be making disciples, whether through our preaching or testimony. Just as Shem, Ham, and Japheth served as the beginning of a long lineage, we too can create a lineage of believers for many generations to come. Did you like to know more about them? Comment down below and don't forget to subscribe to receive the next video as soon as it comes out. See you soon.